Well, good morning, everybody, and good evening to some of you. Welcome, a very warm welcome from Trade and Investment Queensland here in London. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Linda Apelt. I'm the Agent General for Queensland in the UK and the Trade and Investment Commissioner for Europe. I'm delighted to be hosting you this morning from London. Our team here enjoy nothing more than working very closely with Queensland exporters to help you find the business partners and the opportunities in UK and in Europe. And we also love to assist connecting investors with UK and European opportunities in Queensland. So today is the first webinar. We are thrilled to be launching the UK Market Access Series. And this obviously is targeted today at Queensland exporters. The reason that we've launched this Access Series is because we have had in recent times an unprecedented interest from Queensland exporters wanting to know more about the UK market and how to enter this market. And of course, without the ability to travel at the moment, we thought that this is the best way of being able to engage and be supportive of Queensland exporters. So the aim of the series is to continue our efforts in providing market updates, business opportunities and practical tips for Queensland exporters wanting to access the UK market. Many of you will be aware, I'm sure, that Queensland has a long and rich relationship with the UK built on a history of migration, trade, investment, and long established cultural ties that date back to 1859. So regardless of the current COVID impact, the UK certainly remains a great place to do business. A potential new Australia-United Kingdom free trade agreement will make the UK a good springboard for Europe, the world's largest marketplace. The new free trade agreement promises to reduce tariffs and quotas and make doing business with the UK easier and smoother going forward. We see good opportunities for informed exporters who take a strategic approach to win business in the region. This monthly webinar series will talk to the latest insights on changes, challenges and opportunities in the UK market. We'll hear from experts and decision makers based in the UK, along with Queensland exporters who have already succeeded in this prestigious market. So now it's my opportunity to introduce the partners for today's webinar. Today's webinar will give you a general market overview of doing business in the UK. Our expert panel will give you practical tips and considerations on how to best do business here. We are proud to be delivering these events in partnership with the UK Department of International Trade, Rochester PR, Oury Clark Accountants and Solicitors, and award-winning B2B sales agency, JMB Partnership. If you would like to meet or speak directly with our valued partners, please reach out after the event and we can facilitate a connection. I'm now very pleased to introduce today's lineup of expert speakers. We'll hear from Joanna Freeman, Consul General for Queensland and Northern Territory and Director of Trade for Australia and New Zealand, UK Department of International Trade. Craig Agnew, Director of leading Queensland exporter, the Happy Snack Company. Joanna Dodd, Managing Director, Rochester PR. Andrew Oury, Partner, Oury Clark. And James Blakemore, Managing Director, JMB Partnerships. The agenda for this morning will be as follows. We'll first hear brief presentations from Joe, Joanna, Andrew, and James, and then I will facilitate a brief discussion with Craig Agnew of the Happy Snack Company, and then we'll have time for Q&A with all the speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please click on the chat icon on your control panel and type in your question. If they are for a particular speaker, please include this detail. I'll bring the questions up if we have time for questions at the end of the presentations or during the Q&A. I'm now delighted to hand over to our first presenter for today, Ms. Joanna Freeman. Jo is the British Consul General for Queensland and Northern Territory and Director of Trade for Australia and New Zealand at the UK's Department of International Trade. Most recently, Jo worked as Deputy Consul General in Sydney and has previously worked for DIT in various roles overseas, including India and Canada. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you, Linda. Good morning, everybody in the UK. Good afternoon, evening, everybody here in Queensland. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today and to join you all to hear about doing business in the UK, which is, as you might have guessed from my title, a subject very, very close to my heart. A brief introduction on me. I have been in trade and investment for the Department for International Trade for a number of years now, and I've done previous roles in other overseas postings. I was offered the opportunity to come up to Queensland last year. Brexit has done a lot of things, most of them, or some of them negative, but some of them also positive. And one of the things that Brexit did for me was give me the opportunity to come to Queensland, re-establish the consulate as a full diplomatic mission, but also to re-energise the trade and investment relationship between the UK and Queensland and Northern Territory. And I'm delighted to say that since I arrived here last October, we've built a team that now is ready to support Queensland companies who want to invest into the UK and export into the UK, but also for UK companies who want to invest here to bring new technologies, skills and innovations into the state, boosting skills, boosting jobs and also boosting investment. Why do business for Australia why should Australia do business with the UK is one of those questions that I am always asked. And for all of the reasons that Linda outlined in her opening remarks, is we share a long, well-established history, trade and investment, cultural, rule of common law. We have a sovereign head of state. We also have, I think it's a sporting rivalry, it's fair to say. But I don't know who's come out on top of that at the moment, and I'm not even going to go there. I'd rather talk about Brexit than the sporting links between Australia and the UK. But we also have a really long-standing, long-established business relationship, and it's a relationship that continues to grow. In the Department for International Trade, we recognise the importance of that trading relationship, and it's a relationship that has never dimmed, no matter what's happened in the world. The UK companies and UK business wants to do business. It wants to export to Australia, it wants to do business with Australian companies, it wants to welcome Australian investment into the UK and Australian exports. Why? Because we are open to new innovation, we're open to new technology, we're open to new skills, and we're open to new products, goods and services. Australia has some of the most outstanding goods, products and services. It's not all about Vegemite and Tim Tams. It's not all about lamb. It's not all about beef. It's not all about wool. There's so much more to our relationship between Australia and the UK in terms of business than we could ever begin to imagine. And I've been here for 12 months now, and I have to say, there is so much opportunity, there is so much innovation, so many skills and so many technologies coming out of Queensland that it's almost impossible for me to know where to start, but start somewhere I must. So what we're looking at is we're particularly interested in talking to companies who have technology. Digital trade is a huge area of opportunity for us. Healthcare, digital health, education. retail, e-commerce, obviously in these, and I'm going to use that phrase that none of us said 8 months ago, in these unprecedented times, you know, we ordered a few things online, but now that seems to be the norm. The digital world is opening up to us in a way that it has never done before. It's given us so many more opportunities for trade, for investment, but also to grow that business relationship. 12 months ago, I was talking to companies who wanted to come on trade missions to Australia to find out what the opportunities were, and were saying to me, oh, I don't know about coming to Queensland, it's a bit far, it's a bit too much, I want to go to Sydney, I want to go to Melbourne. Well, now I can bring companies to Queensland from the UK and they don't even have to leave their home or their office. I can bring them here digitally. We have so many more opportunities to showcase each country. If you're a company in Queensland and you want to export to the UK, you don't often have the luxury of being able to get on an aeroplane, go to the UK, go and talk to people, spend a week outside of your business, and then come back. You don't often have the luxury of that time and that capacity. Whereas digitally, you can do that. You can talk to us in Department for International Trade. We work very, very closely with TIQ, with Linda and her team on the ground in London. We can talk to you about what the UK has to offer you. We can talk to you about the technology, the companies that you can do business with. And we can do that on your time zone, because I and my team are here to support you. And it's not just in Queensland. I've got a team of people across Australia that have expertise in different sectors who can talk to you about your business, who can talk to you about your sector, and can also talk to you about where the opportunities lie. And we can do that by connecting you with people on the ground. We have over 300 trade and investment advisors across the UK who can all talk to you about what doing business here is like. And I can tell you that it's open, it's welcoming. We love a new technology, we love a new product or service, and we're open to doing business with you. How do you get in touch with me? Well, you have my details. Ask me a question afterwards. You have Linda and her team on hand. You have the guys at Trade Investment Queensland. But yeah, just pick up the phone or email us and talk to us. And I'm very fortunate in that, being here in Queensland, I can get out and about to come and meet you. And I have a series of regional visits planned. I'm not going to just sit in Brisbane for the time of my posting. I want to get out. I want to meet you all. I want to find out about your business and then look at how we can support you and help you grow. And not just in the UK, but for UK companies that want to come here and partner with you to do business with you. And just before I stop, because I'm conscious that I've probably gone over my allotted 5 minutes, there's just another thing that somebody said to me today, the words that I didn't use 8 months ago, which are now part of my daily vocabulary, is the phrases, are you on mute? You might be on mute. Well, hopefully I pressed the right button and I wasn't on mute for the last 5 minutes, but I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Look forward to working with you all, look forward to answering your questions later, and thank you to Linda and the team for the opportunity to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jo, and certainly the partnership that my office has with Jo's office is absolutely fantastic. It is true to say that traditionally the cost of travel and time for Queensland exporters to come to the UK has been a significant impediment in the past, but from what we've heard from Jo today, that no longer needs to be the case. And the other point that Jo made, but I'd like to echo, is that the UK is not just about London, it's about the regional areas as well. Jo has, I think we heard, 300 offices all across the UK. So that is a fantastic outreach network for exporters wanting to explore the full depth and breadth of opportunities in the UK. Thank you, Jo. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the first of our expert service providers on doing business in the UK. We'll now turn to Joanna Dodd, who is the Director and Founder of Rochester PR, who will share her expertise and insights on key marketing and PR considerations. Joanna has more than 25 years experience in PR. She spent primarily in consultancy, working with companies from brand new startups to global internationals across a huge range of sectors, from food and drink to private equity and major charities to IT innovators. We're very pleased to be working with Rochester again, a company that knows the UK market well and regularly supports Queensland and Australian businesses. Over to you, Joanna.
Thank you, Linda. Let me just bring my slides up to share with you. And also, actually, I'd just say that the whole thing that Jo was just saying, and Linda too, about virtual is a great opportunity at the moment in terms of your PR and marketing, because you can start it all virtually before you even need to arrive in the UK. So I'm going to give you a few considerations to think about in terms of marketing your business here, and really give you, as I say, some points for you to consider before you start any activity. It's pretty much essential, as far as we're concerned, that you raise your profile here in the UK to become successful, because the fact that it's such a great market, as you've already heard, hasn't escaped the notice of many of your competitors. So they are all here as well, trying to do business. And I think it's worth saying that it's very, very rare for a company to make it here or to become an overnight success without doing some form of activity, without putting in some effort, some time and some budget usually. So I'll just give you very quickly a couple of examples of conversations we've been having with Australian companies recently. One is a company that's been here for coming up to a year, and sort of pretty much says, you know, it's been great, we're getting some traction, but we're not actually reaching the key opinion formers that we really need to. And how do we change that? And another from another company looking at the UK, who really wanted a bit more advice on how his retail market is structured here and who the key players are. So there's lots of different questions that come about that we sort of take under our umbrella of PR and marketing. So how do I know it's rare to be an overnight success? Well, really, because this is what we do. We do PR and marketing for companies coming into the UK from anywhere in the world, which I think is very useful, actually, talking to you guys this morning, that you know that we talk to companies from all over the place. So recent clients have come from Australia, but also Canada, Czech Republic, Denmark, Mexico, Sweden, Turkey, to name but a few. And it's very widespread of client sectors. So everything from food and drink through to tech to services, both B2B and B2C. So everything I say here is sort of applicable to all of those. We did some research, which I've shared before with some other Queensland companies. We did some research, I have to say this is pre-COVID, but it just gives you an idea about how companies think about their businesses from when they first founded them. And I think it doesn't surprise us that a company like Finland that does a huge amount of business here in the UK, you know they've got to think global rather than local right from the outset. When we did this research, actually, Australian companies were not particularly Queensland, were the other end of the scale. So it doesn't necessarily correlate that the more likely you are to go global, the more advanced you are in terms of your marketing and PR. But there is something there that these companies start thinking about it possibly a lot earlier than some Australian brands. And then we also asked Australian companies why they were attracted to the UK market. And so this is the top there, top left, large customer base, English as an international business language, and a stepping stone to other international markets, which Jo also mentioned. So the fact that it's a great large consumer base hasn't escaped the notice of everyone else. And it's really why it's so important for you to understand the UK market in a lot of detail. So this is what we often describe as the brand journey for a company or brand coming into the UK. You know, you may start off right down the bottom left, not known, or maybe known a bit. And your journey really is to make sure that you get up to being a trusted brand as quickly as possible, because that's where you're most likely to be successful. And the first thing that you have to get right for the UK market, in our view, is your messaging for this market. So it's all about, you know, why you are relevant to the UK and what you're bringing to the UK, why people are going to want to engage with you. And so what I'm going to give you now is some thoughts, some pointers, some, as I say, considerations about the sorts of questions that you should ask yourself to help you be able to get your messaging right. And that starts from really getting to know your market, understanding what the opportunity, oops, sorry, that went a bit too quick, understanding what the opportunity is. So firstly, start off by knowing your market. Every market, as you know, has a rhythm and a pace of its own, key times of year. And this may very well be very different from what you're used to at home. So make sure you take a good long look at your market, how it works, how it is different from yours. Would it be better for you to target perhaps a sector of the market that you're entering rather than the whole market to make the most opportunity for you? Next, take a look at your competition and sector. This is just really important to know what your competition is up to and what your sector relies on. So is it very busy? Is there a lot going on? Lots of conversations, lots of events? You can also, by looking at your competition, get a sense of what they might be spending on their marketing and PR. And just as an aside, I'd say that I don't think I've met a client when we talk about budgets that goes, that's fantastic, that's just the amount I was hoping to spend. I think everybody always hopes it's a lot less. So do have a look at what your competitors are doing, because it will give you a sense of how noisy they are. And if you're thinking about engaging with the sector, you know, take a look at the media that reaches that sector. What are they writing about? What's interesting to them? Just to get, and you can start doing this a few months before you enter your brand, just to get a sense of how you might fit in. And do you have something genuinely new to offer? Which brings me on to number 3, you know, how are you relevant? Who's going to be interested in your brand or your service or your product? Why should they be interested? And what sort of problem do you solve? And remember that brand purpose today, I think especially after everything we've gone through, brand purpose is often just as relevant than the product or service itself. So what do you stand for as a company? What are your values? Then I'd say take a look at your collateral, your content, everything that you use at home. So that's, I'll show you a slide in a minute, but that could be just working out, you know, why does that work in the UK, in your market? Do you think it'd be relevant in the UK? Do you think people are going to be as interested? If you don't know your metrics around your own content, whether that's your website or your downloads, you know, really take another good look, because all of that's going to help you when you bring it over to the UK. And then start to look at what the opportunities are for you across paid, owned, earned and shared, which is a topic that you can find a lot of great charts and information on the web. So have a look. Here's one that we use and we quite like. And it takes you around that sort of, if you travel around, you can see all the different types of content, types of activity that you could be doing. So things that you own yourself from your website, it could be your podcasts or webinars, your newsletters, to what you do on social at home and, you know, how important that is to you. Could you replicate it over here? To obviously the PR and marketing, where you get some coverage that can achieve coverage, but also can achieve, we've had, for example, coverage that we've put out on LinkedIn for one of our clients, which actually got him investment for his company. So that sort of PR can do wonders for your business and attract new clients, new customers. All the way around, if you follow it around into paid media, and you can, as I say, if you've looked at what your market's doing, what your competitors are doing, you can get a sense of what sort of digital marketing they're spending on, what sort of advertising they're spending on. So it's a really good, as I say, there's loads of different varieties of these around, but it's a very good way of having a think about what you've got already, what you don't need to change, what you do need to adapt for the UK market. So having done all of that, next piece of advice really is to get on and do something to tell people that you're in the UK. So I'd say that you're not trying to be best kept secret. This is not a great thing. You often hear people say that after a year. Oh, I think we're, you know, one of the UK's best kept secrets. It's really not, in our view, it's not really an achievement. It's something you should try and avoid. You really need to tell people you're here, otherwise they won't necessarily notice you. So plan for what you're trying to achieve, you know, set some objectives. What are you trying to do? Is it raise profile to find new customers? Is it to, as I say, get investment? And then start to do some work, but don't overstretch yourself. If you're doing it yourself, don't overstretch in terms of time that you've got to invest in it or budget, and don't overpromise. It's much better to do a few things really well than to do a scattergun approach and try and do a bit of everything. In this day and age, I'd say be authentic, more important than ever before. You know, be honest, don't over claim. If you're not the most innovative company, don't say you are, because if you get found out, that can often be a problem. And then the big challenge for you really is to choose the right combination of PR and marketing to get yourself noticed as soon as possible. The elements that will give you the greatest return, greatest chance of being successful in the UK. Don't stubbornly stick to what works at home if people are giving you advice and saying it's not really going to work here. So one of the big things I'd say is be adaptable. Listen to what people are telling you, adapt to that feedback, and go out there and shout about your brand and your company. So thank you very much for listening. If ever you want to get in touch, as Linda says, you can find us via any of the Queensland team, and we'd be delighted to chat with you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. And as usual, very, very wise and good advice based on enormous experience of working with our companies in Queensland. And yeah, likewise, the experience of being here, this is an extremely competitive market, one with huge opportunities, but to take on board that preparatory work that you've outlined, Joanne, is obviously so very, very important. So thank you. Right, well now let's hear from Ross Meadows and Andrew Oury of Oury Clark. Oury Clark are leading chartered accountants, lawyers, solicitors, consultants, recruitment and financial advisors based in London and Slough, offering a breadth of services to both large and small companies and also to individuals. They have supported a wide range of Queensland businesses to enter the UK market, and we're very pleased to be partnering with them again this morning. Andrew Oury is partner at Oury Clark Chartered Accountants. Andrew specialises in assisting Australian businesses to expand and grow in the UK. He has a wide range of clients from startups to large listed entities in industries such as media, technology, retail, lifestyle, and the engineering space. He also specialises in international tax structuring, R&D tax reliefs, and video games tax reliefs. Ross Meadows is partner at Oury Clark Solicitors. Ross is head of the HR and employment team. Ross advises a range of international clients on UK setups, including drafting service agreements, contracts of employment and staff handbooks, and is very experienced on the business immigration side of advising international clients with visa issues. Welcome, Andrew and Ross.
Thank you, Linda. So we are Oury Clark, and we're going to give you our spin on expanding your business into the UK. I think the first question is, why the UK? Well, if you're really serious about building a truly international business, there's no better place than the UK where brands come alive.
And yeah, the obvious points, language and time zone. I mean, it's an excellent counterbalance to Australia's time zone, the UK time zone, and obviously access to Africa and all these other places, including Europe. And the language in English is helpful.
Now, I'm not biased, but London is probably arguably one of the greatest megacities in the world. I'm a northerner, so there's plenty of other places, great cities across the UK. It will depend on your business, you know, where you're exporting to, where your customers are. But if you're looking at London, you know, the culture, the music, the theatre, the entertainment, the pubs are amazing. It's one flight to anywhere in the world, and it's got some really helpful tax exemptions if you're going to be seconded to the UK, where you pay less tax than at home for 2 years. But yeah, the main takeaway is the pubs are good.
I think something underlying it is UK law. Obviously, there's, we're moving back to a world of really the Commonwealth is being the sort of more connected or more logical place to do business. I mean, you've got common law, common language. I think that's really important now. I mean, there's unbribable judges, sort of well known in the UK. America does most of its litigation here as a result. Whether unbribable judges sometimes isn't what you want, but certainly it's a useful thing. But the UK law, in terms of its tax use of holding companies, we'll talk a little bit more about that. You're really now looking at sort of, if you're building an international structure, it's really Singapore or London, or if your investors are mainly in America, Delaware C Corps. But London's positioning is very much like that, and I think Brexit is in many ways a very sad thing, but from an Australian perspective, hopefully that means there is better alignment in terms of VAT, duty, free trade, visas, and all those other aspects. And it becomes a more logical partnership from a legal perspective.
And if you're looking for investment, it's the largest investment market outside of the US. You've got to explore research and development. Tax credits are a lot simpler than in Australia, and the enterprise investment scheme, you really need to know a bit about that, but we'll talk about that in a bit more detail later.
There's a great visa. You've got to get it before you start employing and setting up in the UK, but there's a sole representative visa which allows you to send someone over. A little bit on that more. And also, I mean, we're waiting for the politics to play out, but there will be more visas. I mean, it's been announced, the innovative visa, and we're looking for sort of further announcements and clarifications, but it should become now easier for Australians to come into the UK.
And don't forget the talent here. Brexit or no Brexit, we've got a hotbed of very talented individuals. Don't be afraid of employing people in the UK. We're quite flexible on our employment laws. You can only claim unfair dismissal after 2 years, so you've got a bit of flexibility if you get a couple of bad eggs. Hopefully you won't. If you get your employer brand right, get your recruitment right, you'll get the right people. We've got some really great people that you can employ on the ground here. But one of the focus areas I want to discuss, one of my specialities is visas, and timing is the key here. I find with visas that sometimes you're focused on the company setup and the structure. Sometimes this is the first thing that you need to consider if you're looking to send some of your key staff over to the UK to expand the business. And Andy touched on the once in a lifetime opportunity with this representative of an overseas business visa. It's known as the sole rep. You have to look at this and explore this before you start trading, before you start employing any staff. What you have to set up to enable this, well, to send your senior person over, you will have to set up a wholly owned UK subsidiary company or create a permanent establishment here. That means registering your Australian company in the UK. Most people would go down the UK company route, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. And you can send a senior member of staff to set up operations in the UK. Sometimes we would say maybe if you're sending a salesperson, maybe your second or third best salesperson, you don't want sales to drop completely in Australia. Get someone who can actually create their own area where they can expand and grow the sales for your business globally. This person, the key thing to take away is that they can't be a majority shareholder, so they can't own more than 50% of the shares in the parent company in Australia. So if you're the owner of the business exploring this visa route and you own more than 50% of the shares, it's not going to work for you. That there are other options. Otherwise, you need to consider the personal work visas. Australians have options through, say, the parents are were born in the UK and British citizens, you can get a British passport. If you've got grandparents who were born in the UK, you've got ancestry rights. And then there's also for the ambitious 18 to 30-year-olds who want to travel, want to explore, and you want to keep them as members of your staff. There's the working holiday visa, the Tier 5 Youth Mobility, which allows them to go over for 2 years. The key mistake people make is that they just send the first people over on that without considering the other visa options. That's a mistake. You may think that they're only going to be over here for 2 years, but normally they probably stay a bit longer, and you've got problems at the end of the 2 years if you need them to stay. Moving on, if you're the owner of the business and you can't use the sole rep and you haven't got personal visa options, there are other visa options. The key one that I'm seeing a lot of, particularly for digital tech companies, is the global talent visa. It's where you're the founder of the business and you're a talented or promising individual in the field of digital technology, and you can really have an impact on the UK. Other than that, there's Tier 2 sponsorship. The rules are changing on this, as Andy mentioned, that they're going to bring in new visas. So I think there's going to be a lot of flexibility come 2021 for businesses setting up in the UK. My second takeaway point is don't rely on a business visitor visa to come and work in the UK. It doesn't work like that. It allows you to do certain things, explore the UK market, to attend meetings. If you're a director of the UK company, you can attend meetings with your staff, maybe with customers, as long as you're not doing effective work as such. If you found out, you could get a 10-year ban. It's going to put your business on the back foot. The other consideration is if you're traveling infrequently, even if you're using this visa in the right way, you've got to be careful that you don't become a tax resident in the UK. If you end up spending more than 183 days in any 12-month period, you could become tax residents. You've got to keep an eye on how many days you're spending in the UK. And also, if you have a UK company set up and you're coming to visit the UK from time to time, and the UK company has a payroll with your staff, there's reporting requirements. If you're spending more than 59 days in the UK, you've got to report to our tax office. So you've got to keep an eye out for any of your staff and yourself if you're planning to visit the UK. Forming a UK company, if you're really serious about the UK, having a UK company set up shows that you're on the ground. It's commercial. It breeds confidence in your customers. It's really easy. It's all digital now. It can be done in a few hours, normally 24 hours. You don't need a resident director. You don't need a resident shareholder. The only time you may need that is if you've got some regulatory compliance requirements, or maybe you open a bank account, but a bit more about that later. It's highly robust. You're going to protect your Australian company. There's a limitation of liability there, and it also gives you that UK office address. I do have to mention probably the trickiest bit is bank accounts. My takeaway, keep it straightforward and easy. I wouldn't bother with any of the traditional banks at the moment. Look at the challenger banks. Our favourite challenger bank is Cash Plus, and if you mix Cash Plus setup with a foreign exchange provider such as Axiom, you can't go too far wrong. And Cash Plus will soon have their own banking license, and that will really change things in terms of opening a corporate bank account in the UK.
I think the most fundamental question is often just raising money. You're trying to build a business. Australia's obviously good at an angel level and you can list, but there is this problem in the sort of the mid-level. If all of your shareholders are Australian, you can't beat the Australian franking credit system, and your top company, you should remain Australian, rule of thumb. But if you want to attract international investors, particularly if you want to attract any British investors, being venture capitalists or angels, you need to understand something called EIS. I mean, the London is the largest investment market outside of the US. And if you combine it with the unusual fact that R&D tax relief in the UK allows the conduct of development anywhere in the world, yes, that means you can do all of your R&D in Australia if you wished, and you are still eligible up to 33% cash back. You combine the raising the money, the R&D, and then why holding companies, which I don't really have time to go into detail, are really good in the UK. You can sell subsidiaries, you have low tax, you have the largest tax treaties network. So I think these three things combined, but you need to understand a little bit just on structuring that. Next slide, Ross. So there's something called EIS. There's also got SEIS, which is like the little baby brother of it, where you get a 50% relief. But it gives investors in the UK, whether they're venture capitalists or individuals, 30 to 50% of their money back when they invest. It also gives them a whole other load of tax reliefs. But you know, you can understand you'd be mad to invest and not have EIS. In order to be eligible for EIS, the top company in the group either needs to be British, or it can be a foreign company with a UK establishment. People also use the word branch. So if you just do the next slide, Ross. So effectively, this is how you become eligible for EIS in the UK. You don't actually have to change your top company. Your Australian company can remain Australian. This is often misunderstood. But you've got to register that top company formally in the UK, a Companies House and the Tax Authority, as a, I'll say branch because it's a sort of more commonly known phrase, but the correct term is UK establishment. There needs to be activity attached to that. There needs to be some substance to it. You need to open an office. You need to have an employee in the UK working for the top company. But that is an option. The other option is looking at flipping your structure. If flipping your structure would be the best idea if you genuinely want to raise in money from anywhere in the world, because the UK, for various reasons, is set up in a way that is very attractive to investors to be able to invest. And
that's, you know, hopefully you'll get some really good takeaways from that. We could spend hours talking to you, to be honest, on all the things and all the key considerations. We do offer a 1 hour free consultation with anyone looking to expand into UK. We'll work on your time zones as well. We're used to it. We normally travel. You know, we're normally over in Queensland at least twice a year. We will be back. We will return. But why Oury Clark? Well, we're lawyers and accountants for all our sins, but hopefully working with us, you'll find that we're much more than that. You know, we provide a wide range of professional services. We can support you on payroll and employee benefits, to name but a few. And what we want to do is try and make your life simple. Have all these professional services all in one place, and you get the advice right, and we try and cut through that red tape and offer straightforward advice. If you want to get in touch with us, here's our details, but Linda and the team will also have those details. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I just unmuted there. Well, thank you very much for those insights, both Ross and Andy. We've got two questions that have come through, which could apply to any of the panels. The first one: will my business experience challenges in the UK as an Aussie-based business? Do I need to think about the UK presence early on? I think we've heard each of the speakers have spoken to that point, but I wonder if maybe Joanna, you might like to respond to that question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, so Ross and Andy have mentioned, you know, why it is useful to have a UK entity, but I think what we've found in the last few months is that actually the UK has been much more open to international brands marketing themselves, introducing themselves during COVID and not being based on the ground. So we've actually had some businesses that weren't even considering the UK have launched into the UK and been really successful because you know, there was an opportunity and they didn't actually need to be here. So I think it depends what stage you're at in terms of your market entry. But, you know, in terms of raising your profile and attracting, potential customers, which is useful to know before you start to establish your UK presence. Certainly, I'd say you can do it. Aussie companies are well liked here in the UK, well regarded. So if it's a matter of sort of testing the market and seeing whether it's going to be good, I'd say absolutely. You don't have to be based here at the start of that.
Thank you very much, Joanna. The next one, in a post-Brexit environment, will I be able to access Europe from the UK, given the reduced freedom of movement? Should I consider an EU presence? I wonder, Joe, if you'd like to respond to that question.
Sure, thanks, Linda. Yeah, I mean, it depends on in what context you're talking about. There is still freedom of movement between the UK and Europe. The restrictions will be is if you, as a then UK citizen, wanted to work in Europe or live in Europe or set up a business in Europe. And I use the word Europe. We haven't picked up the UK and moved it kind of 5 miles to the left. We are still part of Europe. The geography hasn't changed. The fact that we will no longer be part of the economic union is the fundamental change. Yes, you can still travel from the UK to France, to Germany, to Spain, to Belgium, to across the European continent. If you're traveling, for example, on an Australian passport, then there is no change for you. If you're UK, you may well have to get a visa waiver or some form of visa to enter those countries where you didn't have to before. So the change is really if you're a UK citizen traveling on a UK passport. In terms of business to business activity, that will still continue. Most of the goods and services we export to Europe, we will continue to do that. There might be additional paperwork involved, but there's no restriction on any goods moving across from the UK through to Europe. It just might take, while it's bedding down, a little extra time. And I'm going to use that phrase again. This is an unprecedented time. We've never been in this situation, well, not for 40 something years. And I'm old enough to remember when the vote happened in, I think it was 1974, to enter the European Union. So I was only a small child then, I hasten to add. But, we are all finding the new way forward. And the one thing that is clear is that the government, the European Union, and the governments of all the countries that make up the European continent want trade to continue, they want investment to continue, they want business to continue, because it makes sense to do so. So nobody's in the business of restricting the movement of goods and services. If you're a UK citizen, your travel might be not restricted, but might be slightly more paperwork. But there is no restrictions on freedom of movement across the continent. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Actually, we've just got another one that's come through. Starting from a zero base, is there any guidance on how long it might take to gain customers in the UK? I think that feeds into the next speaker, actually. So we might have our next speaker and then we'll come back to this question. So once again, thank you very much, Ross and Andrew. I thought that comment about the movement away from traditional banking is a very interesting one, because we have a number of clients at the moment. UK clients have gone to Australia to establish a range of banking options in Australia. So thank you very much. So as we've heard, for any Queensland exporter, finding new clients is arguably the main goal. Who is going to buy, sell or distribute your goods and services? So I'm pleased to welcome our next speaker, James Blakemore, Managing Director of JMB Partnership, who can share some insights on the client engagement and also business development. James has extensive experience in international lead generation and management of sales teams across B2B and B2C sectors. successfully generating multi-million pound sales growth for the UK and also for international clients, James' strategic approach has been instrumental in the business growth and success of these organisations. James is a good friend of the Australia-UK trading relationships. James, thank you for joining us today, and over to you.
Thanks a lot, Linda. I'll just share my screen. So thanks everyone for your time this morning or this afternoon or evening, where you guys are. Just a bit of background as to the JMB partnership. I set the company up some 15 years ago. In that time, we've worked with over 700 international businesses, and many of those from Australia. Actually, one of our first ever clients was a company called Maintenance Connection, who are based in Brisbane. We're very proud to be an award-winning agency, having won the Queen's Award for International Trade, and I'm also a trade champion for the West Midlands region here in the UK. Just a little bit about our services. Again, we work with international businesses, helping them set up meetings and opportunities to find customers or distributors or partners. We do that in a number of ways, and I'll talk through some of those tips on how you can do that, some of that yourself, but also how you can find those first customers. So we use telemarketing, we work on LinkedIn campaigns, we provide recruitment services, but also just give that general advice as to how to find those customers. Enough about us, onto the presentation. Why would we start with a slide about startup? It's really important, I feel, for any company, however successful you are in your own country, to think like a startup when you first come to the UK. The reason being is that no one, unless you're an international leading brand, no one will have heard of you, and you really have to get your message out there. From a sales perspective, a lot of companies rely on word of mouth and their reputation within their home market. One of those things that unfortunately they won't have when first coming to any new market opportunity. So to get your name and brand out there is so important. So I really echo what Joanna was talking about in terms of PR as a great way to get that out into the marketplace. So how do we mean by, what can you do to think like a startup? One of the key things is to not rely on one thing. If you just did, as an example, telemarketing, it would be doomed to fail because you just won't get the reach. You need to combine that with lots of different avenues of marketing, whether that be email, website, social media and PR, along with trade shows and events. Even in the current situation, there's been fantastic opportunities for virtual trade shows, virtual exhibitions going on. So there's all things are still very much open to consider. In terms of any lead generation or marketing project to find new customers, data is the key to everything. If you start with the wrong database of contacts, the project will be doomed to fail. So there's very good ways of doing that. Again, the easiest way is just to understand who your current client base is in Australia, in Queensland, and find companies with a similar profile here in the UK. Again, not rocket science, but one of the most important things you can do because it's less risk. You know, we see sometimes companies come in and they try and launch a new product as part of their UK expansion, which isn't necessarily have the traction that they might have other products and services that are already selling in Australia that could obviously complement and sell over here well. And there's very much, you know, easy things you can do online. Even if you had a very old database of UK contacts, you can get that audited for free, and we'll tell you how up to date that database is, giving a score of 1, 2, 3 or 4, 1 and 2 being okay to still use, 3 and 4 meaning you need to get new data. Telemarketing, again, important part of the mix. Obviously slightly more difficult to do from Australia, but with the current time zone, it's not impossible. What we would suggest is not using sales scripts. So a lot of the industry do use sales scripts. We use something very similar called a sales flow chart. So we're trying to get key information out on the call, but we're trying to have an open conversation with the person we're speaking to. The benefits of that is the person doesn't feel like they're being sold to, but you're also able to grab information and understanding as to whether you're going to be successful in the UK by having that open conversation and asking for help. You know, people you're speaking to, if you ask for help, can you help me find out, is there an opportunity here? It's very hard for someone to say no. Marketing collateral to consider when coming into the UK market. Again, sometimes the challenges we find with companies is they'll go to the market with their existing Australian or international website, and not take too much time and attention on what UK content is on there. It's a bit like if you're competing against a UK company for customers, and they have their website which talks all about the UK, their setup, their presence, and you're going on and all your news stories are about items going on in Australia, it's going to be difficult for you to challenge them. So really do take time to understand, is your website ready for the UK? Other things to really help get out there are a link to PR, so case studies, published articles. You know, if you can get something published, it makes a massive difference because it validates. It's not just yourself saying that you're fantastic, it's actually written in a publication, and you're able to send a PDF of that to prospects. So those are just some things to consider when first getting your messaging out there to the UK. In the current situation, we found LinkedIn has been a fantastic tool for companies to engage with prospects. You know, there are obviously very, very large UK companies with very complicated structures. So as an example, we're doing a lot of work at the moment targeting the top banks over here and insurance companies. And as you can imagine, there's tens of thousands of employees. How do you get to speak to the right person? LinkedIn is a fantastic vehicle to do that. And in terms of cost, it's relatively low cost. Investing in Sales Navigator and email gives you an opportunity to reach multiple contacts direct to their inbox. And so we found it as a great way to reach people. In the current situation in the UK, there's been a lot of staff who aren't necessarily working from the office. They're working from home. They can be more difficult to get hold of on the telephone, and LinkedIn's opened a real good vehicle or route to get to speak to them. How to get a quick win. Again, some really quick and easy things. Really understanding and studying the news agenda in the UK. What is the government talking about? What are they investing in? What are their opportunities? At the moment, even just in the last couple of days, there's been articles regarding electric vehicles, as an example, where they're looking to speed that up and ban diesel and petrol vehicles sooner. Again, if you're fortunate to be in that industry, that's a great opportunity, and now is the time to come to the UK. So understand what the UK are talking about. If you're in construction, as an example, there's lots of talk about investment in infrastructure, trying to stimulate the economy here. So by understanding the news and political agenda, that can open up opportunities for you. I'm a big believer in having a local presence in the UK. So a quick and easy way of starting that is to have a UK phone number and a UK address. Again, listed on your website, it shows the market that you're serious. You're going head to head with UK competition, from a relatively low cost of £100 a month. That can be done by setting up a limited company. Again, relatively low cost, as we heard earlier, and very low risk. But it does show the market that you are serious about coming to the UK. So it is something very much to consider. Recruitment, I'd say probably the most important thing about market entry to the UK, if you are fortunate to look to open an office. Obviously, the first employee is 100% of your business, and we see companies fail for making the wrong recruitment decisions. If I was to do that and I'm looking to set up in another country, the first thing I would do is employ someone who's working for a competitor. So you might pay a bit more, on average maybe 20% more, because you're headhunting somebody, but they already have the contacts, they already understand the industry, and can be a great way of speeding up the process. As I say, you may pay a little more, but it works in the long run. Just a couple of quick updates in terms of very much the last 6 months in the UK and some things to consider, especially around sales and marketing. As I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn response rates have increased, so it's a bit of a no-brainer to really look at having a subscription on LinkedIn. Email open rates have increased. There's probably a couple of reasons for this, but predominantly that, again, people working from home, they have less time in meetings, they have less time traveling, and are opening more emails than maybe they were before, but you've still got to make that content interesting. Telemarketing, there is a bit of an issue in terms of getting hold of decision makers, because again, some of those are working from home, a percentage are allowed who aren't currently working. But one thing that has happened is companies are more willing to give out direct numbers. So in the long run, that's a really good thing, because you're able to get hold of somebody straight away without having to go through a switchboard. If you're in the technology industry or have anything associated within that industry, there's been a massive increase in UK companies investing in technology, as they have to in terms of the current environment, but also an understanding that difficult decisions are currently being made around workforce and how do they improve how they work as a business, and normally technology is an answer to that. So I think if you are in that space, the time is now to really look at the UK. And it's a bit of a level playing field, as Joanna mentioned earlier. By using Zoom, by using Teams from anywhere in the world, you can have that first connection. Normally you are, the expectation is you'll have a face-to-face meeting. Again, having that, but at the moment that isn't happening, and those sort of web demos are taking place. So it does provide an opportunity if you aren't actually in the UK. And really, looking at a sector-by-sector approach, really do investigate, is the sector you're looking to target, what is going on, what are the challenges they're facing with COVID, but what are their needs and requirements that you can maybe help them with. I won't get into just some examples of some of the clients that we work with. As I mentioned, one of the ones that we had a very strong relationship for 5-6 years was Maintenance Connection, who are based in the centre of Brisbane. We helped take them from looking at an initial week's travel for 5 or 6 meetings through to them setting up a UK office some 3 years later. So a really good company that have done very well in the UK. Thank you for your time. Obviously, as we said, contact details are there. Happy to answer any questions either by email or now. Thanks a lot.
As it happens, you have answered our first question about how to get a quick win or to win customers in the market. The second question that has just come through, interesting point raised about political priorities and potential UK government priorities. Should I be looking to tender for public contracts in the UK? Can I tender as an Australian business? I wonder, James, are you best to answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to give a bit of insight. I mean, our experience is that obviously it does happen. You are able to tender, but it's very difficult to win if you don't have a UK presence. I think it's more, even if you have a UK presence, it's very difficult to win a tender without some pre-work. And what I mean by that is getting out to meet those type of organisations who are giving out those type of tenders. Because in some cases, if you aren't involved at an early stage of a process, a procurement process, and you're just responding out of the blue to a tender, your percentage chance of winning that is, to be honest, is quite remote unless you're well known within the industry. So a lot of it is in the pre-work. So it's getting to know who those organisations will be, getting in touch with them, building relationships with those individuals, but also those organisations, and then that gives you a much better chance of winning those tenders going forward, in our experience.
Thank you very much, James. Well, now finally, we've heard this morning from a range of outstanding business service providers. All of our speakers have provided some great and certainly expert advice and tips on doing business. And now I'm very pleased to welcome Craig Agnew, Director of Partner Foods and owner of the Happy Snack Company brand. Happy Snacks are a healthy Australian chickpea and fava bean snacks. They're now sold in several leading British supermarkets such as Sainsbury's and Waitrose, and are a global market leader in the product category. And of course, for those people in Queensland, you will have seen this product on the shelves of Coles and Woolworths daily. One thing we certainly hear from Queensland exporters is that they do love to hear from their fellow exporters and to hear their proven success and challenges that they have faced. So I'm very grateful to Craig for making the time today to come and speak with you all about his company's experience in launching the Happy Snacks company products here in the UK. It's a fantastic story that demonstrates good planning and strategy. They're experiencing healthy year-on-year growth in the UK. So welcome, Craig. We're all ears to hear your success story. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that, generous invitation, Linda, and I've really enjoyed the information the other speakers have provided, and felt that was very valuable and relevant. Perhaps what I could do is just give a little bit more background about our company, around the snacks that we make, who we are and what our competitive advantage is, and how we've thought about that, and then give a little discussion on why we chose the UK when we did 3 or 4 years ago, and then the specific solution in terms of market entry, and then how relevant that outcome has been for us. So I think I've got about 10 minutes, so I'll be as quick as I can to cover that. So first of all, in terms of chickpeas, Queensland is fantastic at growing chickpeas. Australia is number 2 in the world at growing chickpeas after Canada. It's a hot, dry climate, and we're going to get more of that. So what's lovely about the product is the protein content is high and the fibre content is high. And traditionally, snack food products have had the things that we shouldn't be consuming, often lots of fat and lots of sugar. So the challenge for our business when we launched in '92 was to figure out how we make these products tasty and relevant, as well as being healthy. Often health foods are considered a big compromise in terms of taste. So we've invested a lot of time manufacturing, improving our processes to get that right. We chose to launch the Happy Snack Company brand a number of years after. It was only 4 years ago when we launched that brand, so close to 20 years after the company was launched. And that was because we felt that nutritionally sound products that are allergen-free, which these products happen to be, there was an opportunity to target a particular niche of the market, which is that allergen-challenged consumer. So what we're seeing in Australia is about 30% of households are managing an allergen. I think 1 in 4 Australians are now avoiding gluten. 1 in 13 kids in every household in Australia has a diagnosed food allergy. So we're seeing that increase in allergies also prevalent in the UK and in other Western markets. But we didn't see a brand that was doing a good job targeting that. So we focused, this is a particular product we launched in the UK that targets kids' lunchbox in an allergen-free snack that's tasty. And what we felt there was an opportunity to do was to have a safe, allergen-free product that kids could celebrate, that their families could celebrate, and met that big challenge of, how do I enable my child to have a nutritious, tasty snack and, I suppose, feel normal ultimately in a classroom or in a school environment where there were big challenges. And there are a few opportunities in life where behaviour changes. We see the arrival of a kid, and what am I going to send this child off to school with is one of the few opportunities in life where habits are changed, and often we continue to buy the same products, but we felt that consumer at that stage in life provided an opportunity to solve a real problem where many other traditional brands hadn't. So we, taking up on the point that I think James made about topical news, 4 years ago Australia launched this Health Star rating. So I just want to point out that these products are all 5 in terms of the Health Star rating in Australia. In the UK, there's a traffic light system. Those government initiatives have been around responding to diabetes and obesity challenges that have largely been a result of prior choices that have been made with snack foods. Crisps are lovely, chocolate's lovely, but there are sugar and fat consequences that, though our body craves them, we're in an abundance of food now, and most of us have to be really careful about food choices. So what our business has tried to do is to make products fun, safe, and still fundamentally really nutritious. So having launched the brand in 2014 in Australia, we've grown really quickly here. We've grown at about 30% year on year. We're in the 2 major retailers. We continue to grow really quickly. But again, the point I think that Joanna made was if you aspire to be a global brand, which is right at the outset, our ownership group and our board had felt that was the key opportunity that this business had. We have a board that has international food experience. One of our partners, directors, is a director of a US lamb company, who also has UK experience, as do I with prior brands. And our marketing head has worked for Mars and Gillette and various other global companies. So we felt the brand always had global possibilities. We view Australia as the core launch market, and the UK as a great first step international market to really understand whether we've got the dynamics of building the business right. So the issues around managing allergy, the issues around obesity, the problem we were solving, we felt was relevant in the UK, and our experience in dealing with the trade and launching new products, and I suppose how we conceived of the consumer opportunity, much of that communication had relevance for UK retailers. So because of the consumer situation that we felt existed in the UK, so we also had, in terms of a launch into the UK, the relationships that we had acquired over time, being in the food business. The food business is pretty small globally. We had great friends that had been successful in large food companies in the UK and had got to the stage in their life where they were ready to step out and do something small. It's really exciting to have a new opportunity and a new plate. And so we partnered with good friends in the UK who had established a separate entity that could be solely focused on developing this business. And so the way we structured that was one where we ensured that there would be collaboration. So we've set aside marketing funds that our supply company makes available. We like to think about our approach to marketing as what's working in the UK, in Australia, how might we apply that, and what's different in the UK, and what do we need to change to make that work. So there's lots of discussion around the execution and the approach. We need to get all the digital assets right. We needed to make sure we had a website that was relevant. We needed to use all the digital tools that are now available and continue to learn how to do that. We have had success not only with the traditional two retailers that we're dealing with now, but also with Amazon, and particularly in the recent environment where people have been physically more constrained or less able to travel. Amazon has I think 60% of households in the UK are Amazon Prime customers. And the lovely thing about Amazon is that means free delivery. The lovely thing about Amazon is that it's unlimited in terms of the range of products that it provides. For us, having a healthy snack option where snacks are a large category and are dominated by many traditional brands and brands that are well loved, retailers are often reluctant to devote new space to the new when they're getting great revenue from the current. So Amazon has enabled us to prove the concept and target particular consumers who have the challenges that we seek to meet in terms of managing allergens and having key changes in their life where they need to solve different problems. So Amazon's been great for us, and having a market entry where there's a collaborative approach to growing sales, we felt that's helped, and that's been a successful, I suppose, entry path for us. The UK represents around about 10% of our business now and is probably growing at a similar pace to our base business. We'd like it to be bigger, but our approach has been to grow organically within our own cash flow, our own capability. We haven't sought to bring new investors into the business, and that's partly about making sure that we execute a brand strategy that's appropriate for the market and build the relationships and awareness steadily as well as we can. And the comments that Joanna made, I think, are are absolutely relevant. That building awareness and becoming a loved brand is a long journey. It's taken us a long time here, but it's the path that we think is feasible for us in the UK. The one challenge for us is, and one thing we're looking forward to with the free trade deal is, though the UK doesn't grow any chickpeas, we have a 17.6% duty exporting our products into the UK, and that's both the chickpeas and the fava beans. So that's a pretty significant headwind in terms of cost, and we'd much rather be investing that level of funds in growing the category and growing awareness. But that's the reality we face, and we're hoping that this free trade deal comes along and that might be addressed, in the next few months and years, as has already been signalled. I'll probably leave it at that in terms of an overview, but and if there's any questions or anything I've omitted or left unclear, then I'm happy to answer any question that's put forward, Linda.
Thank you very much, Craig. That certainly is just an amazing success story. We're probably going to run out of time for the full Q&A, but as people know, they can certainly send questions to us after the event today. I was interested to hear you mention Amazon, because my question was going to be about e-commerce, but clearly, that's already part of your business model. I was just interested, when you approached Sainsbury's and Waitrose, what was your way in there? Like, who were the key, was it the marketing people, the buyers?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's having Jeff and Ian, our partners in the UK, with established relationships with all of the major multiples was really helpful. So yeah, the typical path for retail is there is very programmed reviews for particular categories. So the first thing we needed to do was identify where we wanted to be and who was the key decision maker as the category manager in that particular retailer. We liked the idea. Waitrose isn't considered a competitor to Sainsbury. Waitrose is targeting a different part of the market. We like the idea of those two retailers because they aren't competing with each other, and it gives us an ability to invest time and jointly develop what the path to what are kind of weird snacks. I mean, who eats chickpeas and who eats beans, and how might you create the category in the minds of the consumer collaboratively. So we approached those buyers at the right time. We also did some work inviting them to a trade show, and TIQ were helpful in. We attended a trade show in London for consumers who have gluten intolerance. It's the Free From show. We'd love to be back there again. Obviously, we can't physically now, but we'd love to do that. But those buyers are key. Having success in Australia and major customers in Australia is helpful, but it's only part of the journey. We also needed to be clear about where we wanted to be on shelf. So both Australia and retailers, Woolies and Coles, had invested in a health food aisle, a big commitment to healthier food that may have been vegan, it may have been free from something, it may have been organic. There were a number of different ways better for you is characterised. The UK retailers often have a free from section. Sometimes it's tucked away in the back. They may have a kids snacking area or an adult snacking area. So we needed to visualise where we wanted to be, because that set up who the relationship needed to be. So you really have to work back from where you want to be, what are the relevant price points, where are you going to sit on the shelf, what are the adjacencies that make sense for the consumer. That needs to be really quite clearly understood so that you can then build your proposal around how to achieve that outcome.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Well, thank you very much once again, Craig. That's a fabulous case study. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our webinar this morning. Can I again please thank our wonderful speakers, Joanna Freeman, Joanna Dodd, Andrew Oury, Ross Meadows, James Blakemore, and of course a big thank you to Craig Agnew for his time and insights, and we're looking forward to supporting your further growth in market. So as I mentioned at the start of the session today, this is the launch of a monthly webinar series on doing business in the UK. So please join us for more fantastic insights. There'll also, our future webinars will actually do a much deeper dive into particular sectors and key market considerations. Our next session is on e-commerce, and that will be advertised for later in October. So if you had questions that you'd like to ask that you didn't get a chance to put forward today, please forward them to us after the webinar and we'll make sure we get an answer back to you. So good evening or good morning, and please have a fabulous week ahead. Thank you.